Today is January the 20th. Nearly 3 months that we started preparing for TED, and we have our own license. TED Talk to be held in April.
Yes, ma'am. I remember all the brainstorming session we had, and after all that, we have come so far.
I swear, it all started as a student assignment. Can you believe it?
Yes. But there are many TED Talks which are very good but couldn't find
Awesome.
place on TED.com.
That's true. But who knows it better than Sanjana? What is the reason, Sanjana?
Like Utsavi said, there are so many talks which are so good, but they do not find place on TED.com.
Yeah.
So, see, there are multiple reasons for that. TED being the platform it is, expects some kind of major aspects to be covered by the speakers. See, it is very important to understand that TED is not a lecture. When speakers are going for TED Talks, it is very necessary that an idea is presented. The TED Talks are idea-centric. It has to showcase an idea. Also, TED very firmly believes that the problem and the solution are the same sides of a coin. So, whenever you have a problem, you just have to flip the coin and you will find a solution. To that. Right. TED also says that if a talk has a very strong beginning and a very fine end, it just makes it easier for them to, go through the audience, and it makes easier for the organizers to put it on TED.com. There are many more aspects which we have tried to include in the movie, which we are enclosing with this. So please have a look.
So what makes a great TED Talk? It is a super important question that unfortunately has no answer. There's no formula. There's no single formula for a TED Talk. There's no shortcut. There's no silver bullet. What makes a great TED Talk? The first thing will seem obvious, which is that all great TED Talks have an idea at their center. And the number one reason that a talk that we otherwise really like does not quite make TED.com is because it lacks a clear idea in the middle of it. That a TED Talk is idea-centered. It's not just a personal story. And this is probably the number one factor we see among TEDx talks that we love that weren't quite right for TED.com. Talks that you might describe as a story of self. Somebody who is telling you their life story. And often these talks are so compelling. They're popular, they're smart, they're meaningful. They provide this really interesting lens on local culture. But if a story about yourself is not wrapped in an idea, then it's just a biography. It's not quite a TED Talk.
في 2004 واحد من أقاربي أخذني المسجد قال لي يا علي حتوقف هنا حتشحت معك تقريرك الطبي وأي مبلغ حيطلع حنقسمه بالنص. في 2008 كنت أصغر مدير تحرير لأهم برنامج يومي في المملكة العربية السعودية.
And he gave this incredible, passionate story about the transformation of his life. But the problem was that he never actually articulated an idea around it. He told us the facts of his life, but he didn't give us the takeaway message. To encourage people who, when they come to speak, not just to tell their life story, but to extract meaning from it. To try to figure out what is the biggest lesson of their life. Is it to overcome obstacles at all costs? Is it to not believe what other people assume about you? Is it to see what you lack as an opportunity? These, of course, sound a bit like cliches, and it's actually okay that these aren't the most original ideas, but an idea you've heard before wrapped in a story that you haven't can be incredibly compelling. That a TED Talk is not just a lecture. A lecture just delivers facts. It delivers a series of facts that teaches you something, whereas a TED Talk has an idea at its center.
Shakespeare surrounds us. The Shakespeare we're enormously familiar with, but the Shakespeare that we know and we don't know. And of course, every day, we're quoting Shakespeare, but we don't know it.
But the problem was he told us all of these things about Shakespeare. He gives us all of these quotes from Shakespeare that still pervade us. He told us things about Shakespeare's life we didn't know, but he never actually articulated an idea. And what was frustrating is I knew that he had ideas, but he just sort of hinted at them, but he never articulated them. And so it came out as a series of facts that were just wonderful to listen to, but didn't have a center. Could have done is just add that just a framework at the beginning that said something like no one else before or after, Shakespeare gave us the language to understand our modern human experience. That is why we still quote him. That's why he's still relevant today. That's all that talk needed to bridge it from a lecture into a TED Talk. A TED Talk is about an idea and not an issue. Now, and idea-based talks, they're energizing and captivating, and they kind of awaken you to a world of possibilities. And issue-based talks can be exhausting because they hammer you with problems without providing a solution. An issue exposes a problem, and an idea proposes a solution. They're flips of the same thing. Almost every time you have an issue-based talk, you can flip it into an idea-based talk just by changing its perspective. Issue-based talk leads with morality. This is wrong. An idea-based talk leads with curiosity. Another way to think about that, an issue says, isn't this terrible? And an idea says, isn't this interesting? So I'm going to show you a clip from a talk by Julian Treasure. He's given around 5 TED Talks, all of them actually on the attendee stage at TED Global, and he's an expert in sound. And he approached us with an idea that we found very intriguing, but he was approaching it originally from the standpoint of an issue. He said, we have a real problem in the UK and around the world because our buildings are designed to look good, but nobody can hear in them. And this is a huge problem. Or actually, another definition of a great TED Talk is that it has a clear articulation of the idea. Which is that oftentimes speakers will deliver an entire talk, but they'll never actually quite say what they're saying. They'll talk around it, they'll speak in different directions, but they'll never quite articulate what they do, or they'll never quite articulate their mission, or they'll never quite articulate the idea at the center. Now, one of the reasons that they don't do this is because it is actually hard. And it's particularly hard when it's your own work. People sometimes actually don't know how to articulate their own idea.
I didn't start out to become who I am today. I met a cheetah. It changed my life. Meeting a cheetah, falling in love with a cheetah, gave me a mission, and it's given me a focus. And you may have noticed in that video that we were watching early on that the body of the cheetah, it was moving and the tail was moving, but the eyes were fixed, the face was fixed directly on what it was going after, its target, with laser focus. Nothing else matters. And that's what's made the cheetah a successful predator. And it's that kind of focus that's allowed me to do exactly what I've done.
So you see how she almost got there. And this is the kind of thing we see in speakers all the time when they know where they want to go and they just have to go that extra mile to articulate that core part of their work. And as you're listening to this, right, you want to pull it out of her. You're like, I see what your work is about, Lori. Like, you saw a cheetah, you fell in love with its intensity and focus, and you've spent your career trying to have that same intensity and focus in preserving this majestic creature, right? That's what you wanted her to say so that we could then follow along. And
I would like to talk to you about a very special group of animals. There are 10,000 species of birds in the world. Vultures are amongst the most threatened group of birds. When you see a vulture like this, the first thing that comes to your mind is these are disgusting, ugly, greedy creatures that are just after your flesh, associated with politicians. I want to change that perception. I want to change those feelings you have for these birds because they need our sympathy. They really do. And I'll tell you why.
right? you want to hear what he's about to say, because he is like crystal clear and persuasive, and he pulls you, and he knows, you know, even if you are not at all interested in vultures, and let's face it, I actually can almost bet that there is no one in this room that was interested in vultures 30 seconds ago, but now you kind of want to know. And so that's what we're going to get to next. Now, the next aspect of a great TED Talk is that it is focused. A talk that begins a bit too broad.
I want to tell you a story that begins 4.5 billion years ago, the creation of this planet called Earth. About 1 billion years goes by until the first signs of life start swimming around in the primordial oceans. A few more billion years go by till 50,000 years ago, the first modern humans start walking around this amazing planet. Something really interesting happens about 38,000 years ago.
Okay, so this was actually a talk on big data. And that is funny, but I say that with love and respect because it is actually a very good talk, but it starts too broad. And actually, this particular trend is one that we fight all the time. Speakers often want to begin with the beginning of the universe, but you don't have time. You have to get with laser focus into exactly what it is you want to tell people about, and from the beginning, bring them into that journey. So an overly broad beginning is a common mistake. Another way that this plays out is in speakers who give a talk on like sort of overviews, many different aspects of their field, and then in the last 2 minutes of the talk, they tell you something new. And you're like, why didn't you give the talk on that? That's the talk. I knew everything. One more aspect of a great TED Talk. A great TED Talk starts strong. Now, we made the decision from the time we first put TED Talks online that we would intentionally make TED Talks start strong. So go. And the reason we do that is that online viewers are just exquisitely vulnerable to distraction. If you give them the slightest chance to do something different, they'll start reading an email or they'll start a web search, and they don't mean to, but they're just gone. They're distracted and they leave. So you need to pull them in right away.
Hi. I want to talk about why happiness is a serious issue. In fact, why I think it's probably the most serious issue. I was quite excited to be coming to your city, home of Barcelona. I didn't put a picture up of Messi today because I thought maybe. But I was remembering